We're going to look at Spencer's lightweight for distance throw from the 2019 Queen Mary Scotsfest in Long Beach, California. So this throw was 97 feet and 1/2 inch, obviously won on the day, and it was a world record for lightweight for distance. So there's some things in the way that Spencer throws which get a lot of play and get a lot talked about, and the biggest one is his starting position right here. There is a reason behind this. Obviously it's a stylistic choice, but one of the reasons Spencer developed this, he didn't always throw this way. And now that you're seeing more throwers that kind of have the athletic base to do it move this way, is because a couple of reasons. It allows him to keep from just his sprint completely going out the left side at the end. And a big reason for that is that his low points get put in a good spot to begin with. So watching Spencer throw with the weights for distance should be a study in how your low points and high points should track through a throw. So I'll show you what I mean by that. Now there's a couple things in his cast which I think are really, really good and really instructive for any thrower to work on in their cast. Notice that he lets the weight run out and track to his right side, to his implement hand side. See how much leeway he gives it, how much he lets it run out this way? And he gets loaded over that right leg. Now, it doesn't look drastic, and some of it's the angle, but I'd say he's like 90-10. 90% right leg, 10% left leg. He lets that thing run, and look at this cushion. Big cushion right there. So he's developing right from the get-go that this thing has a wide path, and it's got a true low point where he wants it on his body. And then look at that chest turn to the back and lets this left arm get through. He's really trying to get the most he can out of this weight tracking behind him. See, he gets behind him, and he's able to let it, because of that big cushion that he's done here, and because he's kind of followed the weight with his chest, set himself up to be separated. Again, if you look at him from the top, his hips and shoulders look like the letter X, like we always talk about. So, if you take the line of his hips, line of his shoulders, that's wrong, but you take the line of his hips like this, line of his shoulders like that, that's generally what you're looking at. From the top, looks like an X. So, but what he does, he rises here, and by turning back and getting that separation, he gets this kind of float point with the weight back here. And in that point where it floats at the top and he rises again with it right here, he gets to push it out and elevate his hand to push this thing out and around him. So instead of this thing following the path that it was set on and falling right down here behind his heel, instead he pushes it out and around him, works it around his right side. And that's a theme you're going to see over and over again. But look when he starts to work. Look where that low point hits right there. Right behind him. Right in line with or just behind his right hip. Right here, directly behind him. Now, when he casts in, and this is a thing of beauty, this is that Spencer does, his cast here, is he maintains that position, that weight right with or just behind the hip right here. He's kind of what you would say dragging it in. And then look at that, high point of the weight right there. Like you could connect those with a straight line from the back of the box to the toe board. And you're going to see that theme repeat. But look at the athleticism and the speed he gets down with here. Look at the foot speed and the placement. That's beautiful right there. Left leg, already when he's landing, it's already pointing to where he wants to go. A lot of people have to do a land and kind of replace, and there's a little bit of a stumble or a little bit of a hiccup right there. But right as he lands, see how that hip turns right at, it's almost like it's in sync with the weight behind it. It's really a thing of beauty how he does that. And that's the little details that make huge throws. Beyond just his world-class strength and his experience, those are the details that make it. But then look again. Low point, right behind him. And if we fast forward, you know where the next low point's going to be, right? Right out in front. You can draw that line again. The weight is out here. You could draw that line between them again, and it would head right out towards the throwing area. So really a thing of beauty. But here's what I want to point out about his sprint, and here's why the one turn is such a fundamental movement for so many people that need to learn the weights for distance, is when he hits, he sinks, gets himself in an athletic position, loaded up on that right, but as soon as he's sunk and that ball, that weight comes behind his right hip, starts to get behind him again, he's already thinking about pushing the left side to where he's going. So watch this. As soon as he drives off the right, the left arm goes up and he's driving the left side towards the toe board. Specifically, he's driving towards that corner because he's trying to get the most possible running space that he can by taking the hypotenuse. I mean, I'm for real. Like, it sounds mathematical and whatever, but if you're drawing this thing as a triangle, the longest path he gets is that hypotenuse right there, if this is a right triangle. So he's trying to run down to that corner, and look at that. See that big left arm right there, that left arm push up? That's the purposeful driving of the left side to the front along with the launch off the right. Hits the high point beautifully. Now what he's done is he's set it up to where he has not let the weight run too far in front of him, and that's going to come back and be important. Look when he hits. So never obsess about the turning of your right foot in the weights for distance. It's great if it happens, it's awesome, but it's not necessary to make big throws. Because eventually it will, right? Because there it goes. But he lands pretty hard on it, and it only starts to turn when he gets a little bit of more force on it, and the system, meaning him plus the weight, really starts to come into balance and really starts to hit up here. But this is just great athleticism, and watch the left arm. Goes from that drive to a reach right there. So he's keeping everything aligned. He's keeping that weight behind his hips still when he's there. He's maintaining the integrity of that shoulder position, that head position, everything, and keeping it behind his hip. And when he hits in double support, guess where his low point is? Right behind him, just behind the right hip. And you can guess where the next one's going to be, but that's where it gets tricky. So what I was saying, when I say watch how he gets around to the front, I'm saying that's important, the system. And why him being in front of the weight is important is what happens to a lot of throwers here is that they collapse over their left. They get a lot of weight onto their left, and they end up with no drive coming from their right side, nothing to work it around anymore. So they end up what? They end up yanking their head. Or they end up yanking their torso this way to try to get something out of it, to feel the finish. But Spencer is far enough ahead of this thing to where he can get set up on that right, and just like we talked about at the beginning, in all rotational aspects of this throw, he's able to work it around his right. Look at that. He's working it around. There's not like a conscious drive down to that point. He's just set himself up in such a good position now that he's loaded on the right, and the right turns as soon as everything hits, and now he can work it around the right and rise up. And that left arm helps him finish big. So much momentum that he's going to come through that the right foot's going to tap the toe board. Textbook finish. Beautiful. Now, let's talk about low points again. Remember we talked about where the low points are? So this is where it changes on you. Low point's right behind you, but he's not going to have a low point up here in front of him anymore because he's going to release on the way to the high point. Sorry, not the low point's going to, not the low point, but the high point's going to be up here. He's going to release on the way to the high point. He holds on and releases all the time that it's still accelerating. Once you get past here and you get up to that high point, there's going to be a deceleration. So instead of doing that, he holds on for every possible moment of acceleration that he can, because getting to that high point requires either a change in body position or deceleration. And you can't do that at the front. So he's throwing it on the way to, but imagine if it stayed in his hand. Look where his hand ends up pointing. Like, had he held on to it, that's where it would have pulled him right there to that high point, but he let go on the way up to continue and get as much acceleration as he could out of here. So that's some of the reasons that Spencer throws the weights for distance as next level as he does, and why he's kind of reinventing how this is done. But this position out of the back is not just the reason that it happens. This isn't some sort of magical ability that it grants you by turning this way. This is a consequence of him learning that he can set his low points and his high points exactly where he needs them, and he's got the athleticism, the speed, and the footwork to get back around and take advantage of those positions and keep kind of behind that system. Don't let it run in front of him, so he can really power through the right side and push the weight around him throughout the entire thing. Really a beautiful throw.